for the record. I haven't said anything very important for the past 10 minutes. Anyway, what you can do is to assign operations to variables. So, I'm doing it this way, so if this file is available later on, you can take it and then see what I have been doing and try to do the same. So what you can do is to write a letter. Now there's a difference. This is a very important thing in Mathcad. See, this equal symbol is different to this equal symbol. If you write this equal symbol, the one at the top, you're gonna get a calculation. You're doing a calculations, but if you write this dot and equal, it's you're defining something. It won't do the calculation itself. It's not going to give you a result by that. So I can do the operation here, and Mathcad is not going to tell me anything about it. I have just assigned this calculation to this variable. If I want to know the result, then after I have written all of this, then I press equal. How you type these two dots and the equal? Just press the dot, double dot, how is it called? Colon, symbol, and what is this? So that's the difference. If this variable, if you write a letter and you press equal, well, now it has already been defined T.
Subscript. Yeah.
If the variable hasn't been defined and you press equal, Mathcad is going to create that colon equal so you can define the variable. But if that variable has already been defined and you press, well, you type the variable and then you press equal, it will give you the result of the operation that you have previously defined. So that's a big difference between the T colon equal and T equal. There is another equal that I'll explain a little bit later on, which is a thicker one. Okay, so now we can operate with those previously defined variables. How do we do that? So I'm going to create another variable, m, and then I'm going to do, so I want m to be my previous defined variable, t, and I want to multiply by 58. Again, if I don't say anything, Mathcad doesn't do anything. If I click equal, that's the result. Something that you probably have noticed that it has appeared here is an m with a green line underneath. This means that this variable is already defined. It can be already defined in your Mathcad calculation sheet, or is a variable that Mathcad has already defined by itself. So it has built-in variable. So m, I don't know what Mathcad calls m, but yeah, it's just telling you beware. This can have been already been defined before. So if I write t and I say t equals to 5, Mathcad still allows me to do this. And if I now want to get what is the value of t, it's going to give me the latest value of t. So yeah, you can have something like this. So it gives you lots of freedom, but you have to be careful. So now what I could do is just to change m to avoid any type of conflict between what Mathcad has built in and my new defined variable. I can just change m. So what I can do is to assign a subscript, which is I type the letter, then I press dot, and then whatever I want. Let's say m sub 0. Then I can do the same. Now it doesn't appear anymore, that green line there, because Mathcad doesn't have it built in. I have been previously defined it, so I get the same result. Now, knowing this, I'm going to add here a text. Good. Now that I have defined two variables, I can operate with them. So I can create an M1 is M0 multiplied by T. That's it. Good. More things. What is Mathcad good for? Working with units. So with Mathcad, this is very nice. I'm gonna work with create a new variable. I'm gonna add a subscript just to avoid any type of problems. So now I'm assigning a subscript 1 to 2 meters. That's it. I haven't done anything else. It's 2 m. That's it now. A1 is 2 meters. I'm going to create another variable. B1 is going to be 3 meters. Super nice thing about Mathcad, when you operate with variables with units, so, well, see, this is very powerful to be able to do this.
Mix units. Yeah.
Exactly. So this, what I find that the utility of this is when you're doing calcs, you know what you're expecting. You know that you should be obtaining kilonewtons or you should be obtaining meters. So if you're not obtaining that at the end of your calculations, something is wrong. Good. You can do a conversion of units. So let's say that I have D, and it's giving me D in square meters, but for the sake of the presentation of the results, I want this in millimeters square. So I can just type in that black square or rectangle the units that I want them, and it will give me the result in millimeters square or centimeters square.
Servando, sorry to interrupt, but how do you get the superscript onto it?
Superscript, like you will normally do while typing a superscript, just Shift 6.
Thank you, Servando.
Yes. So okay, I can add it here somewhere. So look at this, what we have already done. You can go to preview and you can just print this and it will appear as a, it can be a report, it can be technical or a calculation package. Good. More interesting things with Mathcad. You go to this. Okay, I'm going to create working with. So you can just create a matrix 3 by 3. Okay. You fill the areas and just moving the cursor with the arrows. The arrows. Doesn't matter. That's it. You want to invert the matrix? Easy. Try to do that with Excel. Loads of fun. So again, we don't. Well, maybe Laura, you work more with matrices, right? Most of us now, when we have to do structural calculations and stuff, we just use that. Again, imagine for someone who has to check all of these things, how easy it is to go through this this Mathcad sheet and see everything, because that person can see everything that you have done. You can see the formulas that you have used. Good. More things about matrices, and probably just a little bit more working with vectors and lists. See this dashed line here? This is the end of the page. So I can, if I want to organize my work, so I can just start typing in another page and I can see it. You can create a breaking line wherever you want. So if this is not convenient for me, I can put the cursor where I want the page break, insert, page break, and my page will end here. So if I click now, well, that will be the end of the page. Mathcad by default leaves loads of space around the calculation area, but you can modify that. So there's like 30 mil every from all the edges. Is a little bit too much. But well. Anyway, working with vectors. Vectors and lists. Yeah. So what can you do? I'm going to create another variable. It's going to be a. Have I defined a already? Yes. So it's going to be a2. And that's going to be how you create say a range. So I'm going to create a list of numbers that goes from 1. I'm going to click now, and this says range variable. This is going to create a variable that goes from 1 to 5 in steps of 0.5. This sometimes is very confusing. What you define in Mathcad is the next or the following number that follows the first one. So you don't define the step. You define, so I want to go from 1 to 5 in gaps of, or in steps of 0.5. You have to define that the next number after 1 is 1.5. So this is probably not the best way of, it's not the common way of defining this kind of lists, but Mathcad does it this way. What can I say? So, see, simple as this. It has created that list. Now, you can operate with this list. So I can create another variable, which is now C2. It's going to be A2, and now I'm going to add 3 to all the numbers. So it has created. Now C2 is a list of numbers that contains. It's a reference to A2 plus 3. If I change this to 2, see, it automatically updates the calculation. Good. So now you have obtained, you have a list that you operated, but you want to operate with a number of this list. So how do you call one of these numbers? You type the name of the variable, and now in this matrix window that you open by clicking in this vector and matrix toolbar, you click here, subscript. This subscript is different from the subscript that you add when you press dot, because this refers to the vector position. So if I click here, it will add another subscript. Now if I click 2, see that 2 is not 1, 2. Mathcad by default starts in 0. You can change it, and I encourage you to change it. So confusing because it starts in 0. I'm not sure how you change it. It has to be in preferences or properties of Mathcad, but do it, change it. It's so confusing. So if I click 0, it will appear 4 as a.
So you have to define that every time you open new Mathcad?
No. Well, every time you create a new Mathcad sheet, yes. Yes. So, yes. Again, now that I have created this variable, I could operate with it. So I could call, I could multiply C2 sub 0 to, D. It will do the operation. Okay, so that's for matrices, vectors, and stuff. More things. Complex operations, integrals, and again, we probably don't do integrals very often, but just in case you need it. Let's define another variable. Good thing is you can call your variables as you wish. So there is not such a thing as you have to call something C if is speed of light. You can work with it. It will be a pain every time you have to refer to this variable, but you can do it. So how do you do integrals? Very nicely. You go to this calculus toolbar. You create an integral. You define the limits of the integral variable. Let's create such a simple one. That's it. Let's check if this is true. Yeah. So now, one thing. This might be a stupid example, but something. I have done this, and then, well, see how the blue cursor changes? You control that with the arrows. If I keep pressing right, first selects 2, then selects the left side of 3, so I can type here. I click another time right, it will allow me to write on the right side. If I click right again, see that it's covering both numbers? If I divide something, then it will apply the division to all those numbers. If I'm here and I click on divide, it will just apply the division there. There's another way of controlling this is with space. You can click space. So first I'm in the 2, space. It now covers the whole thing. And it makes the whole operation of selecting things a lot quicker if you just press space. It will expand your selection every time you click you press space. It's okay, I'm gonna add here press space to expand selection. Good. Now, so Pete is a variable. If I want to call it, there it is. Derivatives. You can do just simple derivatives in x. Okay, I'm gonna do something interesting now. Okay, now I don't think I have defined x yet. Oh, something you can check. You just click x equal. If it writes the colon equal, then this variable hasn't been defined previously. So Mathcad allows you to do symbolic operations. So if I want the symbolic result of this operation, I can do it. I just have to go to this one, that. And that's it. So I don't need to have the variable defined to do the operation. I can do symbolic operations.
How is that toolbar called?
This is the evaluation toolbar, which we're going to use later on for some other stuff. Good. A little bit of simple programming. In all of those kind of softwares, you can use operations like if, while, do. So let's create a simple if code. So I define the variable, and then I go to this programming toolbar. then I'm gonna add a line, and then everything that is inside this line is gonna be like a program. So let's create, I'm gonna use this variable that I have used here before. So I'm gonna call, you can actually copy this, put it here, that's it. So I want this if, I'm gonna be using things that I have created previously, so you know, or you can see how you can create something that is very interactive, right? So C to sub 0 if beta is, and I'm gonna use again this, but you can this one. I don't know if that's gonna work if I type it like this, because Mathcad is very picky. Will it?
Yes.
Yeah. So if beta is less than 1, and if not, type otherwise. That's a very simple if this is less than, if not, do this.
But you could type up all if and otherwise. Don't need
I used to just use the toolbars because sometimes Mathcad doesn't like if you type things. I just use it just in case. I say for the problems. If it doesn't like it, it will appear in red.
Okay.
So now let's see what is the value of D2. So beta is not less than 1, so it should be 4.5, which is this one, right? Again, after you have done this, you can play with D2 and use it for any other calculation that you need. So that's my simple programming because it's introductory, but so you know. So let's go to plot graphics and stuff. I'm gonna insert another page break here to keep everything a little bit more sorted. There is, as you can type whatever you want, things might end up being like this. There is an option in Mathcad where you can align things, but then it aligns things as Mathcad likes. You cannot you cannot choose. So then after you have done this, you have to drag it to whatever you think it has to be. The rest of the features. Anyway, plot graphs is also interesting. So to plot graphs, you can open this graph toolbar. Let's create just a simple graph. It will open this kind of window where you define here the, say, the x variable, the y variable. Let's create a sign of y. If the variable hasn't been defined, Mathcad just gives values to this variable that is in the formula. So here it's just from -10 to 10. You can limit this by just modifying these numbers here. If you go this to go from 0 to 10, just change it. It will change it for you. Or you can do something like this. You define that your variable goes from 0 in just creating like what I have done previously. 0 steps of 0.5. I'm going to create another graph, and then this is going to be since of the variable I1. And this, see, now the variable is already defined. So Mathcad is not filling this gap for you. You need to do it, and then it will read this. As you can see, this curve has a lot more edges, because I have explicitly told Mathcad to give the solution or to calculate the value of this function at these steps. So if I don't define it, it just does like a continuous graphic, but in this one, I was like, oh, yeah. In steps of 0.5 or in 0.1, it will be a lot smoother, right? Let's do it like this. Good. You can combine plots. So I can create another graph in which I'm gonna use the same variable I1. Just gonna plot this. If now I select this and I think it's press tab. No, it's not tab, it's space. It's enter. No? It's comma actually. If I press comma, it allows me to add another graph. So I can now plot I1. See? Then I have two curves in the same graph using the same variable that I have defined previously. See what the computer is doing. It's scrolling a little bit. I'm not starting to like this thing. Something that Mathcad has, you will think, oh, this is super great. Mathcad can do everything I want. Yes, but it also uses a lot of memory of your computer. You have big calculation sheets. Mathcad tells you, like, yeah, this is nice, but it's taking me a little bit to process all of this because it's checking continuously the variables that you have defined. So, yeah, it's not like in MATLAB when you define something, you run your program, your code, or anything, and then it does the calculations a lot quicker than Mathcad because you run it for one time and that's it. With Mathcad, as it's doing it everything continuously, checking. Yeah, if you add lots of things, it might start working a bit slow, more slowly.
You can't tell it to temporarily stop.
Yes, you can. You can disable things by adding. I'm not sure what is the key, but you can disable the calculations. It will add a black rectangle at the top of the formula, so you know that that operation is not being done. And yeah, that's it. You can edit this plot. You can go to Format, add grid lines. You can play with the plot quite easily to modify it as you like. Just a couple more things, probably very important for us, more than the integrals and stuff. I'm gonna have another page break, and it's gonna be evaluate functions. So you can define a function like you will write in your hand calcs. You're writing in a piece of paper, and then you can obtain what does this function, what is the value of this function when r is 5. Easy as this. Super convenient thing to do. If you have, let's say, okay, I'm gonna use the variable that I have defined previously. So it's f y sub 1 equals to x sub 1 to the power of 2 plus 5. If you remember, well, C is telling me f. This function f is already defined, so I'm just going to call it f1, avoiding any problems. So y1, I define y1 here as a list. So what this is going to do, well, actually, if I call this, see, it's just calling is using the results of the list that I have created previously to evaluate this formula to all those values. So this is actually pretty convenient. You want to check what happens if things change in a list, so that's it. And a couple more things. How to solve let's call it how to obtain the value or result, obtain the root of a function. How Mathcad works, it solves function in a numerical way, so it doesn't do the process analytically like we will do by hand. So to solve an equation, Mathcad needs an initial value, because it's going to give you the result in the range of that value. So if the solution has several, so if the function has several solutions, it's going to tell you the value or the solution that is closest to the initial value that you give to the variable, as an example. So I'm going to define x sub 5 as 3. This is my initial guess. So I'm telling Mathcad, I think the solution of this equation should be close to 3. So how I write it is root. I put the whole thing, and now it's not going to allow me. See this thing? Look at this. So if I press space, as I haven't done it in order, if I press space, it just allows me to select 2 and then this, but it's not going to grab that x square root. When this happens, I just usually start from. Yeah, like this, problem solved. Square root x minus 2. Now I want Mathcad to solve this for the variable x, because you can have multiple variables to solve. And then if I click OK, okay, see, it's not giving me the result because it's not x sub 5. I haven't defined x, as you remember. X sub 5, and I want the solution in this. So that's it. How to be sure? Well, we can plot this. Has taken this. Something has happened in between. Okay. And this should be. It's not plotting. Oh yeah. I'm gonna use. Okay, easier. Okay. Oh well, can I obtain this because x is defined? I'm going to explain what I'm doing. So the thing is that as I was trying to use, the thing is that I'm telling Mathcad x is 3. So if I put here x is 3. So here you cannot tell, but the solution of this equation, the cross to 0 is there at 1. So well, it's doing it properly. And also it's telling me that the solution, maybe this continues. I don't know exactly how this function goes, but it's giving me the result that is closer to my initial guess, which is 3. So it's giving me, it's trying to find the solution here. Maybe this function does, I don't know, it goes back again or does something. But the solution it's providing me is the one that's closer to this value. Good, and last but not least, how to solve a system of equations. So again, we need to give Mathcad an initial guess for the other variable that we're going to include in our system of equations. Then to start the solve block, Mathcad needs this to be given. This is needed. And see, this is a difference of this and this. If you don't press space, Mathcad is understanding what you have written as a variable, not as text. So if you want this to be text, at the end of what you have written, you have to press space, and then it changes to a text thing. Yeah, remember this, because sometimes if you don't do that, well, you might think that you have written a variable, but you have written text because you have pressed space, and then all sorts of errors will start to appear in your Mathcad. Okay, so after I have done this, I just define the equation. To define now the value of, so now I'm going to type equal, but it's going to be the third type of equals that you can write in Mathcad, the thick one, which is here. Evaluate numerically. No, it's not evaluate numerically. It's this one. Oh yeah, it's this one. No, which is the... Oh, this one. The one that doesn't appear. The Boolean Tool Bar is the one that creates that equal. There is a shortcut. Is
control equals, I think.
Perfect. Yeah, for all of these things that you can see in those menus, you have a shortcut. So for this equal is control equal. So this is the one that you have to use here. It's not valid. The normal equal, the colon with equal wouldn't work. This one. So you define this, and then let's say 3x minus y equals 2. Same 4. Good. What are the values of for x and y? So you just write find x, y equals 2, and that's it. That's the solution of your equation system. And I'm gonna stop here. Questions? 10 minutes of questions.
PSI will tell you where.
Oh yeah, that's great. Exactly. So that's very useful. That's very useful. So let's say working with units. You're gonna add here. Yeah. We're working with knots.
Oh, is that defined? Nice.
That's it. Meters per second. Another great thing. Let's say that I'm doing something. So I'm doing 4 knots by 20 meters per second.
20 minutes, sure.
Oh, it's
if you
not.
do 4 knots by 20 minutes, you'll get a distance.
Oh, well, it's multiplying, yes, it's
yeah.
plus.
Plus.
Okay, plus.
Okay, that'll give you...
It does the conversion for you, and it gives you the result properly. And if you do 1 knot, then just type it. So exactly, this is a very, very, very useful feature. Very useful.
You can on Google.
Yeah, saves you loads of time. No. It's just sometimes we work with this. One source of information is working in knots. The other source of information is giving you the wind speed in meters per second. you can do the conversion. You can just forget about it and just type, okay, 4 knots for here, 20 meters per second from the other place. The good thing is that you're seeing, like now, if I would have had that multiplying it, I was getting square meters divided by seconds to the power of 2. That's wrong. If I'm expecting to obtain knots or meters per second, so that's very good to check that what you're doing is correct. Good.